and had that experience with the word, realized what it really meant, but you still are not
I
not
still don't
comfortable
like
with
the
the
word.
label.
I still don't like the word.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So I'm of the opinion that faith is a default position to human beings, and people who differ or sway away from that position actually need to explain why they change their behavior. Because what we see in anthropology is human communities across the globe, whether they were connected or disconnected, or just remained isolated for hundreds and thousands of years, still showed the proclivity to have faith in that agency of the Creator. So it's just there's unavoidable sort of in evidence that comes to the table. Like you can't really avoid it, can't really escape. So this anthropological evidence that we have is confirming the fact that human beings have a default position of having faith in a creator God. Okay, so now if atheists have some motivations to divert from this path, which is very natural to human beings, and not just human beings, by the way. We recently had a experience, not recently, but in the past 50 years, I should say, with a chimp that pretty much grew up learning human language, sign language. The chimp is called Coco. The nickname of the chimp is called Coco, and it was a female chimp.
Yeah.
And this chimp who learned human language happens to go on, talk to people, and call people stupid because the way they are destroying the planet, and tells them after she dies, she's going to go to a happy place. And this knowledge that the chimp had just shows it's just not human beings that kind of relate to the agency of a creator and expect to meet the agency after death. But even the chimp has the very same feeling. So it goes on to show that even animal creatures, it's just not anthropological. It's across humans, non-human species as well. It actually applies even to them, that you have evidence from non-human species of relating to the agency of a creator God. So the evidence is overwhelming, and if some atheists have motivations to find a deviation, they need to substantiate why they have deviated. Their own children are believers, by the way. It's demonstrated by a science experiment. So a science experiment conducted experiments on little human babies, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They found out that the default position of these babies was to relate to an agency. And even atheists themselves have to school out their growing babies into disbelief. So while you do that process of indoctrinating them, you got to substantiate why you're doing that. Strange behavior of the indoctrination. Like, what is your premise? What have you found why we should not believe in this agency? What is your evidence? So it's the onus of justifying is basically in their court. It's not in our court, but we can still do the job. I'm not of the opinion that I will not shoulder the burden of proof. I can shoulder the burden of proof. Do you have the courage to listen to it? Do you have the courage to engage with it? Do you have the courage to conclude from the evidence that I will provide you about the agency, the creator God? So I have found more so that they do not engage with the evidence that you provide them with, and they come up with excuses that they don't have time or what and what not. But that's where I am at the moment. So
okay, yeah. So I see somebody here. Somebody said it's not philosophy, because they asked, is this philosophy? I thought it was philosophy. Is this specifically religious talk? There is such a subdiscipline of philosophy called philosophy of religion, and this is exactly what I'm doing here. So, and you can analyze in that subfield, of course, you can analyze religion from the lens of philosophy, and I don't hear Daniel's here saying that, you know, the Quran says this, the Bible says this, therefore it's true. You're using philosophical terms like burden of proof, agency, you know, and so on and so forth. So you're handling this from a philosophical perspective.
Yeah,
so
religion doesn't even apply
is just not informed.
Religion doesn't even apply to the chimps. I'm quoting you chimps. So it doesn't even apply to them. Like the chimp Coco, you should really listen to that video on YouTube. It goes on to say that show that these chimps had a sort of conversation among themselves. Like chimps talk to each other of how some chimps behave. Like the Coco, she would tell human beings of how her mate was behaving like a toilet.
Oh, wow.
It's very sophisticated. So the chimp was actually calling out the
Interesting.
dirty behavior of another chimp. So it's very
Oh, wow.
sophisticated. It's very sophisticated. I encourage you guys to go and watch this video on the YouTube.
So let me interject here. So what you're saying, just to summarize what you've said so far, is that you're interested in providing a source of belief because you think, as you stated, like if we can look at like just this being like the premise you started from, humans are religious believers by nature. That's just their default. And you use not only the universality of belief, like most people in the world do believe in some divine thing, but you also moved on to talking about, I think it's a gorilla, Coco.
Yep,
I don't know
yep.
if she's still living. And then you also mentioned humans from a very young age, that they have to be kind of brainwashed out of religious belief that would be default if left untouched. So that's anybody in the chat who's like, maybe people are distracted, they're just talking amongst themselves, but that's a quick rundown. That's a summary of what you said so far. So, but this position you're starting from, that religious something, a religious belief, a religious longing is a default view, that's foreign to atheists. They think that the default view is to just believe nothing. But I think the evidence runs really harsh against them, let's say, in this respect. There's very little evidence for this, and philosophically it doesn't really stand up to much scrutiny once you dissect it. The idea that would just be a default view. I think the default view, let me just explain real quick, would, well, let's see. If I were using a presuppositionalist apologetics, I'd say the default view is a religious view, because the way that God creates us, he creates us with that longing for him. But even if you weren't starting with that, atheism would never be the default view. It would be agnosticism would be the default view. Because here you have like the supernatural, over here you have the natural world. This says supernatural entities exist. This one says supernatural entities does not exist. The default view would be somewhere in between that says, I don't know either way. Like that's the default view, not atheism.
I absolutely,
anyway,
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I encourage. My first motivation is belief is a natural position of human beings, but at least be an agnostic. At least be an agnostic.
Yeah.
So that's my second level of motivation. At least be an agnostic. Just say that you don't know or you've forgotten.
And I should say this. I should say this also, and I'll let you continue. But excuse me, Pascal. Without even using a presuppositionalist apologetics, he will say that agnosticism is actually irrational because you have to wager on something. You're already playing a game. And so to say, I don't wager on anything is to take the most irrational position. So wager either one way or the other, and wager for the one that's going to be the most pragmatic, benefit. But again, that's a pragmatic approach, but it's not a presuppositional approach. So all that to say, like, even though I say agnosticism would be a very reasonable default view, that's not necessarily obvious, because somebody like Pascal will say, no, agnosticism is not the default view. That's an irrational view to hold, because you're not even playing a game that you know you're already playing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite agree with you. Agnosticism is a very lazy position that you don't want to engage with the evidence, or you don't want to justify your own position of why you're agnostic. So it's a very lazy position. A better position is atheism, where you actually involve yourself in defending your deviation of why you have deviated. So, but these days I don't find atheists coming and defending their position of why they have deviated. In fact, they sort of feel it easy to throw the ball in our court and say, okay, you bear the burden of proof, which I'm happy to do. People should not misunderstand that I'm not being favorable to the position
I feel the same way.
Sharing the burden of proof. I can share the burden of proof 100%. There's no doubt about it. But are you ready? Are you prepared to engage with the evidence that I will bring to the table? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. Are you prepared? And another thing, I just want to clarify some of the confusion when you were actually using the word religion. Like the default position is religion. People may not like this word being used, religion. That's why I avoid it. I don't use religion. I would just say agency of creator, so with which they would be comfortable, like because people, once you bring in religion, the thing that comes to their mind is Christianity or Islam, or they. But that's not even relevant. What is relevant at this point in time is the existence, the plausibility of God, the Creator. That's where the question is with respect to having a conversation with atheists. So I tend to avoid religion, the use of the word religion, just for them to be comfortable having a conversation with me. So if that makes sense. So it's just my input.
That's totally fair, and to that point, I usually put it in terms of something like the spiritual or the divine. I think people even in far-flung, lost tribes on the globe, they still believe in something divine or something, let's say, beyond the natural. Even if it's like just communicating with spirits, like Shintoism began, something just like communicating with dead ancestors. They may not take that to be divine, but it's certainly supernatural. So yeah, I would put it in those terms. Just be like, yeah, if we're talking about worldwide, there is something that not necessarily like a formalized religion, but that everybody agrees in, but it's something spiritual beyond the natural world that is universalizable. Yeah. So that is your motivation. Sorry, you were saying like this is one step and there's another step, and sorry, but we got off track. But you want to continue what you were saying?
Yeah. So is there a defense of Christianity? 100% there is a defense of Christianity. Is there a defense of Islam? 100% there's a defense of Islam. But provided people engage meaningfully, there is a defense of. In fact, I would say the Quran itself is a defense of the Bible. I know Christians would have problems kind of relating to this view, but in my understanding, in my studies of the scriptures, I've studied the Quran for more than 20 years now, like like proper research, proper study, and I've written books on the Quran, explaining the Quran. So my understanding of the Quran is the Quran's position itself is a defense of the Bible, of the previous scriptures. So there is defense of all of these religions. It's just that how people want to engage with it. And basically, if people don't want to engage with the Quran, I'm comfortable not to bring the Quran to the table at all.
Right.
Like I can defend the position of God from the Bible itself. So even though I'm aware of atheism, the damage that it's bringing to the table in relation to the Bible, I'm aware of all these arguments, and I agree with some of them. But at the end of the day, Bible has a very long developmental period. So in that developmental period, there has been things that are added to the Bible in a way, but Bible still contains the fundamental message given to the prophets of God, and that fundamental message right there in the Bible is its own defense. So I'm happy to discuss that based on topics. If you want to do it in the future, like I want to really engage with you. So if we can plan something together, and one of the famous things that I use in defense of the Bible is the prophecy of Daniel. That's why I got the name Prophet Daniel has spoken. So that's the motivation.
Let me say this real quick. So I had another. I saw somebody in the chat saying, "Oh, does he think?" I mean, it sounds. I can understand, but just for clarity, they thought you were like saying that your name was Daniel and that you're speaking and you think yourself as a prophet. That's not what's going on here, of course. I mean, that's one reading, but it's not the correct reading.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I was wondering about this. So you take Prophet Daniel to be something significant. In what way?
Yeah, because Prophet Daniel, you just clarified it. Thank you for your clarification. I'm not Daniel. I'm not Prophet Daniel. I'm not a prophet. It's just that Prophet Daniel has spoken is a thing that is important for people to pay attention to, because Prophet Daniel's prophecy, which he interpreted to the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, is a world changing event, kind of prophecy. It's a powerful prophecy that should be looked into the historical events that really took place since, fulfilling the prophecy to every word. And that itself goes on to be a great piece of evidence for people to look into it and sort of come to the conclusion that the predictions made by God of the heaven have indeed come true in the march of history, which was very unusual. So predictions don't come true over changing empires, let alone any other simplistic thing. It is a very complex way of fulfilling a prediction. In that, empires are
It's true.
involved. Empires are involved, and there is
Right.
earth-shattering events taking place, battles taking place, and God of the heaven has His direct hand in it. He gives victories to empires, to one of the sides. He picks and chooses the sides and gives them victory, and brings this prophecy, this prediction, to be realized in real-time world events. So
Yeah.
you can't miss it. Nobody can miss it. You should have some very innate motivations to bypass this prediction being fulfilled. So you just can't
Yeah.
escape it. So it's really powerful. So it
Yeah.
shows pretty much that God has been speaking to prophets and getting His word to be fulfilled in a grand stage in terms of world history. So
Yeah. Yeah. So yes. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with Daniel. I know it's a apocalyptic literature partly, and it's prophetic literature as well. Yeah, of course, we're all familiar with the Daniel in the lion's den and the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, of course, and the fiery furnace. Those, but like Daniel is so much more than that, of course, as well. You know, it has apocalyptic, like last times, final end times references as well. So it's very unique book in the Bible. But so I'm not familiar as much with Muslim theology, let's say. I know there are some Christian thinkers out there that are like really way more informed about it than I am. Even and I've got a friend actually who used to be Muslim. He was raised Muslim. He's from Sudan, and he's American citizen now. And he just became Catholic as well. He's one of my good friends. Muhib is his name, and I'm probably going to interview him about like what led to that and everything, and just kind of pick his brain on it. But like my extent of being familiar with like Muslim differences and so on is very surface level. Of course, I'm not familiar with any things like that, but I do know from the perspective of philosophy that Christians and Muslims like are very good partners together. You know, especially if they're what is it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation. They're partners against atheism. You know, and it's been this way throughout history. Like the Islamic golden age of the 10th or 11th centuries. You know, and St. Thomas Aquinas coming on the scene. He's citing guys like Averroes and Avicenna. You know, and there are other great Islamic philosophers, Al-Ghazali with the Kalam argument, Ibn Khaldun, who was a philosopher, historian, and sociologist, and just all these really like golden age of philosophers from the Islamic age. And so I know that people think a certain way about Islam now and Muslim thinkers, but if you gave it more than just a surface level thought and looked into the history of it and looked at the arguments, like Christians and Muslims are siding each other all the time, like in favorable ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that these two are actually complementary faiths. Like there's no other bond in the entire world. Even religions that have come after Islam, for example, Sikhism, has got nothing to do with Christ, but Islam becomes the only religion that makes it an article of faith to have unbroken faith in Jesus to be the Messiah sent by God. So these are actually complementary religions. We complement each other, and Quran even calls Christians to be friends of Muslims. So there is so much emphasis laid there for cordial relations between Muslims and Christians. So I don't see why people have to take beef with each other, especially being Christians and Muslims. We are complementing complementary faiths, and we can forge a new relationship in the modern world to be friends of each other in a very unique way. And why not? I mean, we can do this. I just happened to paste a link of my one of the videos that I did about this prophecy in your chat. If you want to have a look at what I'm saying about the prophecy.
I see the chat where you said watch this, but I don't know if I see the actual link.
The link is right there, I think.
Okay, maybe I'm just not seeing it on the streaming service I'm using.
I'll do it again. Like I'll paste it again.
Okay, just make sure.
Yeah,
I wonder if I
just
have
did it
links
again.
hidden somehow. It could be that I have links hidden
Yeah. Okay.
So if you were like removed a period or something and put or an
no,
at sign or
I
something
pasted
like
a
that.
link for you in the private chat here. So
Oh, okay, great, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Maybe if I post it, then
Yeah.
it'll show up. That might be it. I'll do
So
that.
you have a look, and yeah, I'm looking forward to making several engagements with you. We can talk about several different things. We can talk on atheism. We can talk about
For sure.
Christianity. We can talk about Islam if you want. So, can you please give me your email so I can be in touch with you?
Yeah. So my email, if you go
Can
to the
you type it up in the private chat and collect it from there?
yeah, I will do that. But for anybody else who wants this, also it is on my channel homepage, but I'll put it in the private chat for you.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
you can catch me there anytime.
Yeah.
But I'm also on a bunch of socials too. So like certain people like either Spark Cameron, he found me on Instagram. I mean, it's easy to find me there because just the links are all in my bio.
Yeah.
And Instagram has like messaging capabilities, so we're like messaging each other easily there. I probably prefer that. Like email, every time I get, some people love email, and maybe you're one of those people. Like my mother-in-law is one of those people.
Yeah.
My wife is even one of those people. They're like, "Don't text me, email me," and I'm like, "No." Every time I got an email, I need to delete the email. That just all creates work for me. But yeah, if that's the way you prefer, then we could do that for a while.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I've just sent you an email, so you might have gotten it. So yeah, I mean, whatever
cool.
you want to talk, I'm pretty open-minded. We can talk about. I will even give you a very good idea of Islam, the Muslims, and the history, the problems that
Do I
Islam
get-
has. If you want to know about those, just to get a very good idea of
Oh yeah,
the
that would be
internal
great.
dynamics.
I'd
Yeah.
love to. I'd love to get more informed about this. Do I detect an Australian tinge to your English?
I am Australian at the moment.
I knew it.
I used to live in the States, though. I was in California for some time, a couple of years,
cool.
but then I
Nice.
came to Australia, and I've been here for 12 years now. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So you're Australian citizen? You just
Yeah,
live there
yeah.
permanently now?
yes.
Nice. Very cool. Cool. Nice. Well, it was wonderful meeting you. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
we'll correspond later.
Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
All right.
Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye.
You too. Bye. All right. So